Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Um, Alan here again. As I promised yesterday, I would go through some of the popular 80s albums with you all, those people that are daft enough to want to watch this ugly mush here. So, crack straight on. First of all, I hope you're all well in this lockdown situation that we've all got to deal with here, and I hope that some of you are able to get out, get some fresh air, enjoy the sunshine if you've got sunshine, and try and make the best of a pretty raw deal at the moment. Anyway, enough of the blather, let's crack on. 1980 then. For me, there was only one album, and the difference between some of these albums, because some of them are not the best albums that were released in 80 or in the 80s, but they're all popular. The difference between a lot of them and this one is that it's popular and it is absolutely amazing. And this is this album here, Talking Heads. It's their fourth, as probably most of you are aware. And is it their best? Well, to me, probably it is. Is there a bad album by Talking Heads? No, there's not really. But with this one, they particularly, hit the mark, certainly with a lot of people. Of course, the reason I think it was such a popular album is because everybody bought Once in a Lifetime. And why not? Because it's a fantastic single. It's a mad video, as you're all aware. But, Eno was a massive influence on this album, as he was the previous one. And they brought in a few other great musicians, Adrian Bello being a good example from Frank Zappa. He'd just come over from Frank Zappa. And I think we all know the album, don't we? It's funky, it's world music in there. There's jazz in there because John Hassel's on here as well. It's pop music, it's everything thrown into mix. And I was very, very fortunate to see them on this tour, and they were magnificent. There's some great footage actually out there on YouTube. Every track is an absolute winner. Seen and Not Seen, The Overload, Listening Wind, great stuff. Cross-Eyed and Pain. I mean, I could go on. They just merge into one another, don't they? And I think with this particular album, they utilised the outsiders that came in and joined them so well, fantastic album. And for me, yes, there probably was better sellers in that year, but this is definitely the most popular album, I think, from 1980. So there we are. The first one then from 1980, Remain in Light, Talking Heads. Every household should have that. Okay. 1981 then. Certainly, I'm going to be, some of these albums are concentrating on the record buying public in England. Okay. Obviously, with Talking Heads, it was a worldwide thing. This next album was probably one of the most popular albums in UK, and that was this one here, The Human League. I have to say, I wasn't a great fan of this lot, really, although they come from my part of the world, Yorkshire in England. But they had a few lineup changes before they actually got to this stage. They brought the two girls in, Susanna and Joanne, to sort of give the material a little bit more scope, it's good. I mean, everybody bought it, I think, for, Don't You Want Me? I think that was a big hit on here. And there was others as well. And I think people bought it on the back of that particular single, do you? You want, because it was #1 for many, many weeks in 1981. You know, I'm not sure if it was big in America. I think it was actually, but it was certainly, you know, obviously at this time, you know, electro pop music was taking off. There were other groups that were doing similar material, but they were certainly, there's a few others that you could argue, but they were the most successful, I think, at that particular genre of music. But actually, you know, I listened to this not too long ago, you know, and I quite enjoyed it, to be perfectly honest. I wasn't a big fan at the time, but there's some good stuff on here, you know. It's all synthesizer based, as you're probably all aware, you know. Sound of the Crowd, that's another, I think it was the first single off here, actually. Great song. Get Carter, I really, really like, you know. Love Action. I mean, it's got quite a few hit singles on here as well, you know. So, yeah, you know, if you didn't buy the singles and wanted the whole lot on the album, well, there you go. That's the one there. But it was hugely, hugely popular. It took a bit of a while to take off because the first couple of singles, certainly Love Action, was not that successful, and then it was Don't You Want Me that really sort of took them off, you know. So there we are, 1981, and it's the Human League with Dare. 1982 then, well, I really, really did want to pick other albums apart from this one, but how can you not get away with not picking in 1982? This, I mean, you couldn't get away from it, could you, really, at the end of the day, you know? It was the most successful album, and is it not one of the best-selling albums, popular music anyway, of all time? Probably is, isn't it, really, up there with, let's think now, I think AC/DC, Back in Black, and obviously Dark Side of the Moon. There's a few others. I did want to pick other albums because I'm not a great lover of this, I have to say. I thought his previous one, Off the Wall, was better, in my personal opinion. And I thought his work with his brothers, in some ways, was more entertaining. There was more sort of influence from other people coming in, you know, into the material. Obviously, I mean, you can't get away from the fact that Quincy Jones did a great job with this, you know. And who can deny that, you know, Billie Jean's not a great song? It is. I'm not a great lover of that video. You know, a lot of people love it, you know. But I think it's a great song. It's a great song. Thriller never really sort of took off with me, the title track. But you can't deny that is it a video? No, it's really a short film, isn't it, really, at the end of the day? And that, obviously, that sort of took off the video age and all that sort of thing. I think my favourite from here is "Wanna Be Starting Something," the first track on the album. That's pretty good, you know. And there he is in all his glory, you know, with a tiger on his. Where he got that tiger from, I have no idea if it's real or not. I don't know. But again, you know, I thought that Quincy Jones did a great job on this album. Who can deny that Quincy Jones is not a great musician in his own right, and arranger, conductor, and producer, and everything else, you know, rolled into one. But he did bring in some pretty decent musicians on here. I think Jeff Beck's on here, isn't he? I think someone might correct me if I'm wrong, but certainly Steve Lukather is on here. I don't want to spend too much on the album because I'm not a great lover of it, but yeah, I think Jeff Beck's on now. Then is he on Beat It? Not sure. But there we are. I mean, one of the most popular pop albums of all time, and I couldn't not show you that. 1982. So there we are. Michael Jackson, then Thriller. Another one that I couldn't resist because it's such a great album, and it's mainly, I think, certainly the album was bought by lots of British record buying people. However, the single that there's a little sort of snippet on this album, but not the whole thing, and Blue Monday. And I think you all know what I'm talking about. It's this album, Power, Corruption and Lies by New Order. Again, an iconic sleeve, not a hint of who it is, nothing, even on the back, nothing at all. What a fantastic sleeve by Peter Saville that is. But Blue Monday, that's not on here. And even when you look at the whole thing, you know, it's a fantastic cover actually. It's one of these die cast things, you know. Spent a fortune doing it. I know they did on the Blue Monday single. So you've got this sort of gap thing here and this thing. I thought it's great, really great. And of course, you know, until you look at the record label, and then it's hard enough to read the titles. You know, there's nothing at all. Typical factory records. But what a great album, you know. I mean, yes, people bought it on the back of Blue Monday. And I know that Arthur Baker, for those from America that might be watching, you know, is a great producer, and he's the one that got involved with the Blue Monday 12-inch. And I do think that Blue Monday is still the best-selling 12-inch single, because in the 80s, of course, it was all, you know, 12-inch singles. I think that's still the best-selling 12-inch single. Someone might correct me if I'm wrong. But for me, I mean, my wife and I saw them on this tour, and they were still playing, you know, fairly small places, and we saw them in Dusseldorf, believe it or not, in a school, and they were playing in the sort of school assembly hall there. 200 people, something like that. But there were still very angry young men, and obviously there was a lady involved in the group by this time, you know, and very angry group. Don't know why, but they were angry. But it was a great show, you know. Everybody bought this in England on the back of Blue Monday. Personally, again, is it their best album? It's a great album. It is a fantastic album. And of course, you've got to take your hat off to these chaps after Ian Curtis's, you know, sort of tragedy that went on only a few years before this, for them to carry on, give themselves a new name, and crack on, and then bring Gillian in, obviously, you know, crack on. They went from strength to strength, of course. You know, they still play a lot of this material. Your Silent Face, I think everybody loves that piece, you know. Great song. In fact, the whole album just merges in. But it's certainly got the New York dance floor, electro, hip-hop, dance influences from certainly from Arthur Baker at the time. He was, you know, credited with giving them a lot of influence on this album. But yeah, again, one of these albums covers anyway that as soon as you see it, you know what it is. You know, there's not a hint of any titles or anything. You've just got to look, try and show you this, because even in the typical factory, even on the label, you know, I don't know if you can see that. There we go. It's hard enough trying to read the titles on there. You know, I mean, it's typical factory records, which I love. I love factory. And yeah, eventually this album sold a lot of records. It really did, you know. But I know that you know, so Blue Monday was the big thing that took off in America, and then again after this album came out, they started to concentrate on just 12-inch dance sort of music, you know, which was great. you know, it's okay. Certainly different from Joy Division. Chalk and cheese, really, between this and what they were doing with Joy Division with Ian Curtis. You know, hard to believe that, you know, 2 short years later they produced this. You know, great stuff. Okay, another album. Really, I I didn't want to pick this because there was so many great albums coming out in 1984. You know, and but as I said, you know, I'm trying to pick the popular ones that everybody bought. You know, and luckily for me, anyway, I didn't see this lot live because there's arguments still going on. Did they actually play on this album? Did they actually perform live? You know, was it all sort of the singer obviously was singing live, you know, maybe karaoke or whatever it was, you know, but you can argue to the cows come home because people just went out and bought that in droves. And I think everybody knows what this is as well. And, you know, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, welcome to the Pleasure Dome. And, you know, I mean, everybody bought this on the back of Relax. Let's not beat about the bush here. And you can't deny that the production on this album is tremendous by Trevor Horn. There are loads of musicians on this album. There really are. And they're in the small print. And Steve Howe, for example, from Yes. Would you believe that? He's on it all over the place. You can hear him. And other, I mean, Anne Dudley as well from The Art of Noise, those people that know The Art of Noise. She's all over this with all her effects and string arrangements and everything else. The material's actually not bad. You know, it's not. I mean, I love the title track. I think it's most of one side, you know, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. I thought that was quite good. You know, Two Tribes is great. They had a go at War by Edwin Starr. You know, a sort of modern tack on that classic single, you know. It's okay. You know, it's not bad. I think they stretched it out, actually, with a double album, myself, personally, but everybody bought this in the UK, and I know in America it's quite popular well. People took off to Relax was one of those songs where it's a bit risque. Well, it was. Absolutely was risque, you know, but people bought it. And I think it was the fact that it was risque. The video, the song, I think it got banned. One of the DJs in the UK banned it in the end. And of course, that forced it to go to #1 because people just wanted to buy it just out of spite more than anything else, I think. Very unusual cover. Quite nice, that. And there's a nice little quotation here, actually, in the centre of the cover. It says, "I get buzzed off the fact that Andy Warhol has heard of us because he gets the buzz off the fact that Picasso had heard of him." I thought that was quite neat. Very good. They made one more album, and that was it. I suppose you could argue that they'd reached the end of the popularity, shall we say? You know, I mean, as I said at the introduction to this year, you know, there were so many better albums than this that came out in 1984. There were. And I'm sure that there's lots of you can shout and bawl and all the rest of it. By far, certainly in UK, Europe, and certainly different parts of the world, this was hugely, hugely popular. Okay, 1984 then. Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. It didn't last too long, a couple of years, and that was them. Okay, but still a half decent record. The next year, then, at last, I've been able to pick an album that is truly, truly fantastic and was hugely popular at the same time. I'm so glad about this. And the album I'm talking about, because for me, yeah, there were still some great albums being put out in 1985 from different genres, from jazz, from funk, soul, rock, fusion, world music, indie, all these sort of. But there's only one album for me, and that's this. Can you see that? Kate Bush, The Hounds of Love. It's a masterpiece, in my opinion, and the reason I say that is because of the second side, the thing called the Ninth Wave. What a 23-minute piece of music that is! I do believe that that's her masterpiece. And when, on the first side of the album, everybody knows these songs, every single one. It starts off with Running Up That Hill. I think that was the first single that came from here. Hounds of Love, the title track. The Big Sky. Mother Stands for Comfort, which is not a single. And then Cloudbuster. Those 4 tracks, and brilliant videos as well, they were just one side of the album, and then you had this 20-odd minute piece of just fabulous music. I mean, she's the whole package again. Beautiful photographs. I mean, look at these photographs here. Gorgeous she is as well, with her 2 beautiful dogs, and then there she is again. What a tremendous album. And quite rightly, it got the credit that it deserved, because, I mean, the previous album that she did to this was not particularly well received, because it was too, in people's eyes anyway, it was too experimental. The Dreaming is the album I'm referring to. People just didn't get that. I really love that album, actually, but people just didn't get it. And I think she probably had reservations about how she was going to progress on, But there's everything on here, isn't there? You've got all the hit singles, and then if this ninth wave here, it just takes you on a journey. It's the only way to describe it. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece of music. The musicianship is just outstanding on here. Yeah, she took her time with this, and quite right, did she? Let's think now. Excuse me. Yeah, I think it was a 3-year break, actually. But that's nothing for Kate Bush nowadays, let's be honest. I really do think that this was the album that people sort of walk up to the fact, my God, she's one hell of a talented lady here, and this album has gone on to influence many, many artists, female and of course male as well. Again, would anybody dare to try and have a go at a Kate Bush song? I'm telling you, there's not many out there, because it's a range of a voice, and obviously the musicianship of the material. It's such a high standard, and I dare anybody to try and have a go at one of the songs. But this album is a very, very special album. I believe yes, it is. It's the best album from 1985, in my humble opinion. If you want to tell me I'm wrong, then tell me I'm wrong. But it's just fantastic, this album. And quite right, it was such a success. Everybody bought it. And I think a lot of the casual record buying public bought it on the back of Running Up That Hill, I think. And quite right. And then they had the whole deal. Wonderful, wonderful album. Beautiful package, beautiful photography. Who did the photography? I've got to look at this, because I think it's great. It's captured it beautifully. Oh dear me, I'm struggling here, guys and girls. God. I'm struggling. Hang on. Bill Smith Studios was the makeup. It just says Bill Smith Studios. I don't know who the photographer was, but he did a fabulous job on it. Okay, enough of Kate Bush, because I could talk about this album all day. Right then, the next album. Again, I'm really, really glad that, again, a popular album in the next year, 1986. It's such a brilliant album, and people bought it. Worldwide, we're talking about here. Same as Kate Bush. I'm so, so glad. Because there we are. That's the year of that album. Right then. There's not a thing telling you what it is. It's just his mush on the front. Okay, that's such an iconic photograph, isn't it? And everybody knows who it is. It's obviously Peter Gabriel, but hang on, what album is it? Well, you look on the back of there. So, this was the album that made Peter Gabriel a massive star. Well, why did people buy it? Well, they bought it because of Sledgehammer, didn't they? Such an iconic and groundbreaking video. But forget the video. Sit down and listen to the song, because it is so. It's an angry song, actually. Sledgehammer. It really, really is. That the person, I think, that really pushed Gabriel, because he released all these wonderful albums before this, of course. And all the Peter Gabriel fans that had stayed with him from the Genesis years said, "Oh, he's brilliant." But there were only a small minority of record buying people. And the chap that really pushed him into the direction of being a popular, huge star, I don't think he even realised how big this album would be. That's Daniel Lanois. Okay, he's the one that really, really pushed him to, he brought him over from Canada to Real World Studios in Wiltshire, in Box, a place called Box. And he's the one that, sort of pushed and shoved him and said, "Look, you can be a big star. You already are a star, but you can be huge here. Let's work on this material." And Peter came up with 8 fantastic pieces of music. He'd already dabbled with world music, and then he brought in, Youssou N'Dour's on here. It's just fabulous, Every single track on this album is killer. How to, Red Rain Out. What an album opener that is. Tremendous. And then you've got Sledgehammer, everybody knew that. And then you've got this, I get goosebumps even talking about it, and that's the Don't Kate Bush. How can you not have that image of those two hugging each other when you listen to that song? Because all they do is just hug each other and mime to the song. But it's such an iconic image, isn't it? When you hear that song, that's what you're hearing, that's what you get in your head. It's such a beautiful, beautiful ballad. Absolutely fabulous. Brilliant song. That voice again at the end, that's probably the one that the one song that people just sort of skip forward. I think it's a great song. Who's on that? Just have a quick look. That voice again has got Shankar on here. Obviously Manuel Katsu's the drummer, Tony Levin, obviously. It's one of those. I think it's great, actually. It's one of those songs that people tend to skip forward, and I don't know why. It's great. And then you've got the mighty In Your Eyes on here. The only thing I would say about the version on this particular album is that I don't think it's not the definitive version of that song. It's a brilliant version, don't get me wrong. Because on here you've got Youssou N'Dour, you've got Jim Kerr from Simple Minds. But the live version of this song, when he stretches it out, it's just probably one of the best songs he's ever done, in my opinion, live anyway. But the one on here is great. It's not the definitive version. And of course, you've got the beautiful, is it my favourite track off here? Mercy Street. I mean, how can you not get emotionally sort of charged up when you hear that song? It's just absolutely amazing song, that is. It really, really is. You know, you've got this world music percussion going on to begin the piece, and then it builds. And then you've got the fun, big time math. You know, that was a big hit as well. Stupid, mad video. You know, it was all computer graphics, wasn't it? And then you've got the one with it's a very short piece. We do what we're told, you know, and that sort of finishes the album off, and it's a ride, isn't it? An absolute ride, this album. And yeah, Lanois was absolutely bang on. He shoved and shaped Gabriel to come up with this material, and he put this. You can hear that Lanois' influence on the material. Not that you can't hear, you know, Gabriel's wonderful influence in songs, obviously, but it's the musicians and the way that the material is put together. You know, Gabriel didn't want to make a pop album. He's not that sort of person, really, to be perfectly honest. But he did, and my God, did he take off with this album? It was massive, and quite right too. You know, it sold in bucket loads worldwide. I'm quite right. I'm not sure. Did he get the? I think he may have got an award the year later for Sledgehammer. I think he did. I don't know if it won the best album award or whatever, but I mean, people know just how great that album is. Ironically, you know, his next album was a completely instrumental album, which was, you know, Passion, The Last Temptation of Christ. So he'd had enough of the pop bit. I think, you know, you can equate Gabriel in some ways to a little bit like Springsteen. Springsteen, you know, when he made Born in the USA, I hate that record. And he took off and he was a big sort of pop star. He hated that, I think. And although he's a showman, as I've said on previous videos, and Gabriel doesn't like that neither. He just likes to put on a great show and entertain people. That's what he's all about. He doesn't want to be. I'm sure he does like the money and all the rest of it, you know. But the truth of the pudding is, 3 years later after this, he came out with a completely instrumental soundtrack. And people thought, what's he doing here? Well, I thought it's one of his best albums, but that's another story. Okay, 1986 was the year of Peter Gabriel. Okay, 87 then. Some good albums came out that year as well, but you know, I mean, this next band, there's a link between a person I've just mentioned. That person's Daniel Lanois, and along with Brian Eno, they got this lot into the studio, and you could argue that they produced their best album, and this was massive, and quite right too, because is it their best album? Yeah, I think it is. And we're talking about the Joshua Tree. I mean, who didn't buy that? You know, love them or loathe them. I'm not a great lover of Bono sprouting off and all the rest of it, but this is a truly great special album. There's not a weak track on here either. I mean, I still get goosebumps when I hear. I still haven't heard what I'm looking for. It's just that song is a soul song, isn't it? You know, it's just brilliant. And Where the Streets Have No Name, I've mentioned this chap before, Michael Brook. the previous year had invented the infinite guitar, and sort of gave the Edge that technology, and that's what you hear on Where the Streets Have No Name, because it sounds like a keyboard, but it's not. That's the Edge's guitar, and it's just wonderful. Again, on here, fantastic version, but when you hear them play that tune live, it's just, how could they not get away without playing that song, or some of the the popular songs from this album on any live show that they do? They don't get away with it, do they? Because that's what people want to hear, because it's such a great album. I mean, With or Without You is another wonderful tune. Eno's all over that. Bullet the Blue Sky, that's a fantastic guitar solo by the Edge on there. And then Running to Stand Still. I think that if you want my critique on this, I think the first side's better than the second side. They all sort of merge into one another beautifully, but the second side's great as well. Red Hill Mining Town, great. In God's Country, Trip Through Your Wires, very, very popular. One Tree Hill, Exit, Mothers of the Disappeared. I love that. It's probably one of my favourites from this album. Great package, beautiful photograph by Anton Corbijn, very atmospheric, as he's well known for. Great package, and it sounds great. That's an attractive thing, certainly for me anyway. You put it on your hi-fi and it sounds superb, because let's be honest, Lanois and Eno do not put out second-rate material. They don't, do they? Whoever they work with, they get the best quality and the best out of whoever they work with. And this does sound extremely good. Again, if you've not heard it for a while and you've got a fairly good hi-fi, stick it on and give it another listen with open ears, and you hear that the sound quality of this album is extremely good. It's well worth sitting down and having another listen to, without any distractions. The songs are great. You cannot deny that. And I think they reached a peak here, personally. You could argue, a lot of people would say, well, Achtung Baby is a great album. Yep, it is. Different tack, different way forward. They dropped the sort of depressing thing and went forward in your face. Quite good. I thought they reinvented themselves very, very well, and it worked. Some other albums do, some albums don't. They're a bit sort of up and down, aren't they? I think, anyway. Again, they should let the music do the talking and stop Bono just spurting off. But that's another story. Okay. Who could deny that 1987 was not the year of U2 with this? People were queuing everywhere to get the first copy, which this is. I wasn't queuing, by the way. But anyway, there we go. 1988 then. It's a funny one, this. Great year, I thought, for albums, singles. I thought there was one great single, and it's on this album. There was some pretty awful singles being released in that year, I thought, because the 80s as a whole, from a popular singles perspective, and chat music, wasn't the best. Few were great. The Smiths couldn't be touched, in my opinion, but there you go. A niche market, so they were great and probably my favourites, but there's only a small niche of people bought them. They are revered, one of the best groups to come out of England in a long, long time, since the Beatles, some people say. But when you look at the popularity, they were hugely popular, but there was other albums that I've shown you that greatly outsold them, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing here. And this is one of them, you know, and I quite liked it actually. And it's this chap, Bobby McFerrin, Simple Pleasures. Who did not buy Don't Worry Be Happy? It's a fun song, isn't it? You know, the video, I wasn't a great lover of it. With Robin Williams leaping about like a lunatic. Yeah, yeah. I suppose you could argue it's funny when you first see it, and then it just sort of annoys you after a while, really. But it's a great song, isn't it? I mean, the guy is such a talented man, you know. And actually, you know, people did buy this. It was hugely popular, and I thought it was great because people were buying. I don't think they realised what they were buying. It's a jazz album. It is. It's a jazz influenced album. It's just his voice, of course, and he's such a talented man. You know, I remember seeing him live on Now Then. Yes, we had this music show called The Tube, and when people went on that particular show with Jules Holland before he started later, actually, they did play live, and that was the attraction of the thing. And I thought it was quite good, but it only lasted, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, something. Everybody went on there and played live. There was loads of great bands that went on there, and he came on there and did Drive My Car, which I think was my favourite track off the album, and he was just there on his Todd, and he did it. This guy is talented, you know. He can do so much with his voice, you know. And like I say, there's no other musicians on here. Let me just double check before I, you know, sprout off a load of rubbish. No, it's just it. He does a great version of what's it called? Where is it? Susie Q. That's great version, that is. And then he does Them Changes by Buddy Miles. That's great as well. You know? And then to finish the album, he does the Cream classic, you know, Shouldn't Sign Over Your Love. You wouldn't believe that he could be able to do that, you know, with just voice. But it all works. It does. All he's doing is slapping his chest and creating these different effects with his voice, which you cannot deny is great. And again, you know, who produced this? Linda Goldstein. Don't think I've ever heard of her before. But it sounds really great sounding album. People bought it for Don't Worry Be Happy. They did. And I bought it for my wife because I don't know if you can see that on there. In 1988, we were celebrating our 3rd anniversary. So there we are. So 88. Don't get me wrong. Is it the best album of that year? No, it ain't. But it's still a really, really good album. And it introduced the world to Bobby McFerrin quite rightly as well. He'd been going for many, many years in the jazz world. You know, he'd worked with loads of different people. You know? But suddenly he took off with this Don't Worry, Be Happy. You know, people. It's a great song, isn't it? I mean, when you put it on, you know, and it cheers you up. And that's, I think, actually, someone should post that bloody song because it would cheer everybody up. Don't worry, be happy. Okay, we can worry a little bit with what's going on, but try and be happy at the same time. It's a song. In fact, I'm going to post it because it will cheer everybody up. So there we are. Simple Pleasures, Bobby McFerrin, and it even got a sticker on here, #1 in the USA. So there we are. So popular there as well. To finish it off then, certainly in UK, 1989 was the year of one band and one band only. I can't really tell you much more than did they hit you between the eyes with this album? There's not much I can tell you about this truly, truly classic debut album. It's just fantastic. It really, really is. I mean, when I heard She Bangs the Drums, I went, "Oh my life, who's this?" You know, The singer's not a great singer, because let's be honest, you know, I mean, Ian Brown is not a great singer, but it's all about the material. It's all about the song, and there is not a weak song on this album. What a fantastic cover by the guitar player, John Squire. He's the artist, and let me show you the other one inside, which is fabulous as well. I mean, there we are. Wonderful, wonderful artist he is. But let's forget the artwork and talk about the music. I mean, it's just, you know, John Squire's guitar, the whole band. You know, Rennie on drums, Gary Moorfield, you know, on bass, John Squire on guitar. There's no keyboards. Don't need them. The effects that those three get with those instruments are just incredible. It is just incredible. You know, I Want to Be Adored. What an opener. She Bangs the Drums. Waterfall. Don't Stop. Bye Bye Badman. Elizabeth, My Dear. Just Song for Sugar Spin Sister. Made of Stone. Shoot You Down. This Is the One. And I Am the Resurrection. Truly and utterly awesome album. You know, don't get me wrong, the Smiths burst onto the scene in 1983, as we all know, and they were with us to 1987. And what material they produced, you know. Yes, I've heard that Squire's got on record to say he was influenced by Johnny Marr, and you can sort of hear that in some of his playing, you know. But he's another. Some people know who he is. What a guitar player! And Manny and Gaza, Gary Moorfield. What a rhythm section. Such a sad thing that they left it too long. It did. I think 1994 was the second album, and people had just waited too long, I think. I thought the second album was absolutely tremendous as well. Not as good as this, obviously, but still brilliant. But the record, you know, popular buyers they'd had enough for the wait, you know. And yeah, they did. They waited too long, you know. And I suppose that was the end of them, really. I saw them in Blackpool, and it was okay. I was slightly older than other people there, but not by much actually. And it was like being in a church congregation. It was just one of these shows where people were just. It was like a sermon, really. People were going absolutely crazy. I don't think I've seen a crowd go as crazy, I think, as when I saw this lot in 1990 in Blackpool. Truly an amazing concert, it really was. Maybe not in my top 10, and I've already mentioned those, but it was truly an extraordinary experience, shall we say. Really. And they were great live, you know, as well. I must admit, I was very. I thought, are they going to be able to produce this sort of stuff on stage? And the answer was yes, actually, because I think I don't think I've seen any footage from. I think there is footage out there from where I was. It probably wasn't as good as what I remember it. You know, being there. You know, when you watch it back, it probably wasn't as good as I thought it was. You know, but they were. You know, who in England didn't buy that? And certainly they took off in America as well. You know, but what a great debut album! It's one of these top debut albums. Sadly, they couldn't live up to it. You know? But I thought it was a great second album. You know, people just waited too long, and it was a sad thing. Anyway, there we are. The mighty, and I mean mighty, Stone Roses. Okay, then. That's my 80s selection. Wherever you are, I wish you a nice day. Stay safe, stay well, stay healthy, and maybe we'll catch each other another time. And I thank you very much for taking the time to watch this ugly mosh and me rambling on. Okay, bye bye.